I know I've been saying this several times now, but I think I actually mean it this time. We are nearly caught up with all of the previously recorded footage. This episode is going to see the finalization of our center console build, as well as some of the other more aesthetically pleasing parts of the construction at the front end of the passenger cabin area. So that includes our door cladding and some of our shelving build up in our front area. I threw in a couple other odds and ends of just interesting stuff, again, because I'm running out of backlogged footage. So we're getting really, really close to my Adirondack trip, and that'll probably be the next video that you see. But in the meantime, I like how this one turned out, and I hope you like it as well. And subscribe. Oh, I'm kidding, I'm sorry. I never, ever wanted to say that for real. If you did, go ahead and unsubscribe, dislike, do all the negative things you can. This is not that kind of channel. Some things have changed here. My original linear motor actually burned out, so I ended up Frankensteining together a bracket system and a coupling with a convertible hardtop motor from my uncle's car. And anyway, this Frankenstein thing actually works. It has a slower, like the gearbox ratio is a little bit different, so it travels a little more slowly now, but its motion is a lot more sure. And I added our safety security bar, which is still just kind of half built, but we've got this lock pin that comes in and holds the door secure. So now no wind buffeting or anything can actually hold that. So once the door is shut, that bar can go across and the door is secure for high-speed travel. Now, in order to prevent any inadvertent burning out of the motor again, I wired a defeater switch in. So you'll see right here when the bar is up, we've got this little guy here. When the bar is down, it's held in place, wedged tightly against the door, and this switch being activated disconnects all of the interior and exterior door buttons. So nothing happens until this goes up, and now we work slightly more robustly than before. So for a long time, ever since we got our new backup camera, it came with a second camera, which I didn't quite know what to do with, and so I just sort of temporarily stuck it up here looking back into the cabin, because I was using it as like a payload monitor for when we were carrying stuff around. But I kind of always had in my head this idea that I wanted to use it as a clearance camera, something that was forward-looking, mounted at the top of the bus, that can tell, like, if you're coming to a close overhang, overpass, or a bridge or something. And that's what we ended up doing, is I threw him up there just a little bit ago, and right now I'm doing some testing so we can see. I've measured out on our ladder here. That top rung is 9'8", and 9'6" are the two marks below it. The vehicle stands about 9'3", plus I gave me a little bit of extra height for the Max Air fan bubble. But yeah, so I've just kind of been testing this out right now and seeing what she looks like as far as, yeah, how the clearance goes. I'll give you a look at how things look through the camera. Okay. We are installing paneling. So we're just riveting on the edges. We stained cedar with like a nice translucent slate gray, which is going to match our rustic shuttlecraft space probe aesthetic. Some of these have a little bit of a warp to them, so you kind of have to bend a little bit as you get the tongue into the groove, but once it's there, it'll kind of hold for you, and then nice little soft mallet.
That rubber mallet's perfect.
And this is sort of a multi-step process. First, we had to put a full-length piece in here to figure out where it needed to cut. Now that we're in, we need to drill our spot for the rivet.
Pilot hole. Rivet.
And I'm just eyeballing it roughly in the
Just
middle.
above that knot, above the knot.
Yeah, roughly a ½ inch in. I'm going to call it right about there. I'm going to drill through the wood and then stop just as I make a dimple in the metal. And then come back out and then cut the metal hole properly with my cutting oil and all that other good stuff. Okay. So that's the second time we bring this guy out. Dirty jeans, nature's paper towels. Okay, holes drilled, back in again. At least it goes in a little easier the second time.
Can this come down anymore?
Well, now we're kind of stuck where the hole is. But that
I can
kind of
touch.
split the difference between
I can touch that
a gap
up.
there and a gap there.
Touch that up with a stain.
Yeah. In.
Okay.
Bad form, Kev.
What's the matter?
I just left a little mark.
It's fine.
So part of the reason why we took off our plastic door panel was because the new driver's seat was a little bit bigger, plusher, and wider than the one that it replaced. And so the plastic door cladding, it actually protruded pretty far into the cabin, and we were too tight, so we needed something that was a little more slimline. This is how we ended up. I've got the bottom done. We can kind of see here that it's, I think it's pretty, but the real functionality behind it is the fact that it is just really flat against the side of the door and it doesn't come in nearly as far. So as I'm getting to the end of this, my original thought was I needed to actually build up a little bit higher than the metal here because of this gasket, which, you know, this is the window gasket for when it cranks up, but this other half of it was because of the original cladding, which actually kind of rose up and bubbled out and then came back down. But since we are just going super slimline here, this isn't, I don't need to build up to this just to give this thing an excuse to hang out. So I've started to snip it off just with a pair of side cutters. So this is going to zip away, and then we're going to do some really nice low profile cladding that follows the shape of the metal here. And that's I think that's going to end up looking a lot nicer, and it's going to kind of give a little more room to hang your arm on the side here. Even though we do have armrests, it's just, I think it's going to make the whole thing more comfy and cleaner. So yeah. All right, well, we're getting a sense of how this is going to look. So the rivets show up just on the inside of the gasket. Well, we'll see that in better light in the future. But yeah, that's going to be a very pretty door. Not bad. Who left those there? This test fit is going well. A little bit of a spot there that I think we can just make flush when this actually gets anchored in. This was the angled handle that used to be on the back door, and it happens to be just small enough to be out of the way, more or less, of our armrest when this is down. So, yeah, it's not actually in right now. But that is kind of how I'm picturing the top of the door. Pardon the background noise. Okay, so we got our slats cut as well, and I've got them fit in. So we've got our beautiful back and front and whatever of the pocket, and she's all built and test assembled. I really like the way that it looks. Yeah, so here comes our first test fit. Going for the pegs, and we are resting well. And looking good. So this is going to come back apart again for staining, but this is a good milestone for the day. Here's the finished piece, for better or for worse. Of course, I screwed up on the last one and made a bad start to my cut when I realigned it. But this is just an insert, so if I really felt like it, I could remake it and be the perfectionist. We're just gonna maybe live with it. This dashboard build is generating some weird shapes, but very cool ones. Using some tricks that I learned from building the other side. I'll show you in a little bit how this all really lays out, but it's going to involve that kind of an orientation. More wood is coming in. So we're starting our shelf build. I flattened out our area here. Pulled my switches out from their temporary location. They are eventually going to get wired in and mounted right here. And have a nice little pass-through area for all of our cables. If we get an expansion battery eventually, we might mount it here. But in the meantime, we are matched to the front profile of the fiberglass. And this is going to be where our, I believe we're going to have a shelf and a shelf, or maybe like a little utilities cabinet. And then this is going to be the beginning of where our headliner hits right here. Well, I made my measurements from the wrong line on my template, so I had to actually come back and recut these. Luckily, I did it in the correct direction, that I had excess material to cut away and not material I needed to put back on. There we go. That's the look. Okay, I can't get over this. It looks like a freaking kaleidoscope. I don't know if this is showing up at all right, but come on, focus. This wood is just beautiful. And we're in, and we're wired. So no more Velcro. These buttons are actually in their permanent positions, which is going to be like upper cockpit kind of stuff here. So we're currently wired up to have the heated mirrors, which that is only active while the vehicle is on. And then this is the our floodlights, our campsite lights. This one I'm going to rewire our engine block heater. Rather than having a plug dangling out of the front grille, I'm going to wire it up to our battery station here, so you can actually turn it on from the inside. I should have left that guy. Let's see here. Why does that guy have power? This guy shouldn't have any power on the light right yet, but it's cool. Anyway, and then our door. And the beginnings of what's going to be our shelving and cabinet up here. Ooh, parts. Very nice. Before I can finish the woodwork with the shelving and everything, I actually have a layer of insulation that I want to put up against here. I'm going to be using Reflectix, which is a double bubble, double foil system. It's designed typically for houses, and if you set it up where there's like a layer and then an air gap and then another layer, you get something like a R20 or R40 rating. The layer itself is only worth about R3, but I'm hoping that the reflectivity will be just a supplemental thing. Pretty much just like the more we throw at it, the more we're going to get. And if there are some air gaps, that will actually function according to how it's supposed to work. So anyway, my original expectation was that I was going to have to cut out a whole bunch of big pieces for this and glue it crazily in place, but it turns out that at least for some of these pieces, it actually just kind of sits where it needs to be. So I'll probably just put a little bit of glue around just part of the edges, but for the most part, I just put it there and it just stays. Another nice surprise with this stuff is I don't have to be too precious or particular about cutting it to shape to fit into an area. This was actually just a rectangle, and even though I have it rounded and fitting around a corner, you can just sort of squeeze it in and it just kind of bunches up on itself and actually just still acts exactly as it does. You just sort of squeeze it into place, and I'm using a 3M Super 77 like multi-purpose industrial adhesive. This stuff is great. You just kind of spray sort of just both sides. Like you can put it in place spray the whole area, and then just wait for 30 seconds for it to start getting tacky, and then just press it, and there it goes. But I mean, this actually almost stayed in place on its own before I even put the glue in there. It's more just kind of to help. But yeah, it's helpful, but not crucial. It'll probably be a little bit more so when I get to the upper surface here. But for the most part, I'm really happy with how easy this Reflectix is to work with, and I'm going to have some overlap. That's kind of another reason why I cut these pieces a little bit big, and I'm not too worried about it, because if I do roll over the edges, then I'm just going to not have any seams or gaps that will be an issue for heat transfer. So yeah, I like it so far. I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. Okay, the top layer is in. I put a little overlap and slit in order to let these cables do a pass through. Now all that's left is the front face.
It's high time we made up our minds. Ain't it time we made up our minds? Ain't it time we made up our minds? We made up our minds. We made up our minds.